I'd like to show you one of my favorite technologies found at Desmos.com under Math Tools, Graphing Calculator. And here you just have a grid, and here you can enter equations and coordinates to be graphed. I like to use this to lead the kids to explore and discover slope in the equation of a line. We start out with a basic line y equals x, and you see that it graphs immediately. And then I ask them, well, what happens if we put a number in front of the x, and we compare the two graphs. Our original line is here. We see that it's uphill, and it has a positive slope. This line is also uphill, but it's much steeper. So we compare the numbers in front of the x, and we have a much greater number here and a lesser positive number here. So we think that maybe the positive number in front of the x, the bigger the number, the greater the slope. So I let them play around with that theory a little bit, and I ask them, well, how do we get a lesser slope? And they tell me a smaller number. Invariably, they just use whole numbers, and then someone says, we'll use a negative. So we put in a negative number, and we see it's still very steep, but it's going downhill. And then we conclude that a negative number in front of the x makes a downhill slope, and a positive number makes an uphill slope. And soon, hopefully, someone suggests, well, let's put in a fraction. So we put in a fraction in front of the x. Now we've got a lot of lines going on here. It's kind of confusing. We can toggle off the ones we don't care to look at right now, and we see that our original line has a positive upward slope, and our new line has a less steep slope. So using a fraction in front of the x gives us a less steep slope without going downhill. Then I might lead them, depending on their readiness, to add a constant to the end of this equation and toggle off the original and compare these two lines. We determine they are parallel, and we look at their equations and see that the numbers in front of the x are equal. So parallel lines have equal slope. And if ready, or when they're ready, we can also see what it looks like when we use the negative reciprocal of the slope, and we get a perpendicular line. So perpendicular lines have negative reciprocals for slopes. So there's a lot of discovery and exploration we can do pretty quickly without doing a bunch of the arithmetic and algebra and the plotting of points. And it really helps increase and deepen their understanding of slope and the coefficient here of the x term in the equation representing the slope.